Mabuhay, Pilipinas! I hope all is well for all of us. I'm Kenner Jano Cantal, and joining me today are my co-hosts, Balagao and Ramon.
What's up, Pilipinas? Welcome to Rizal Real Talk, a podcast where we hope to make Rizal's life, struggles, and ideas relevant to the issues of today and bring him to life as a living, breathing conversation for young people today.
To kickstart our series, we're going to talk about historical revisionism, which one of the largest problems of our day. It's an issue that goes head to head with the truth, and one that Rizal himself battled during his time.
I actually noticed that nowadays it feels like too many people, uh, too, too many people that Rizal just lives in our textbooks, someone from the past, ganon. But we need to realize that his fight for what he is just and for his insistence on preserving our history are so very much alive today, especially when we see attempts to distort or manipulate our past.
That's true, but before anything else, let's make it clear to our listeners. Historical revisionism is not reading history again with new facts. It's actually about deliberately lying, omitting, or just outright making things up to further push a specific agenda.
Some might ask, how does Rizal fit into this? Well, Rizal has first and foremost a historian and scholar who was dedicated to studying and preserving the true history of the Philippines. A history that has been repressed and distorted by colonial powers for centuries.
Right. Consider his critique of Antonio de Morga's Success de las Islas Filipinas. Morga's book was one of the few relatively objective accounts of pre-colonial Philippines and the early Spanish colonial period, but Rizal did not copy from his Hulse. He actively corrected Morga's mistake and prejudice.
Also, he spent months browsing London libraries, going through ancient manuscripts painstakingly, double checking facts, also that he would be able to present a clearer picture of our forebears, their society, and way of life before the Spanish came. He wanted to prove that the Filipinos already had a rich, thriving civilization and not a barbaric one that needed to be civilized.
You know, Aliyah, this was such a monumental act of historical preservation. He has not writing history, he has fighting back against the colonialist history that depict Filipinos as inferior and with no worthy past. He has fighting historical revisionism of his period.
Definitely. And that brings us to the Rizal Law, or Republic Act 1425, passed in the 1950s. It mandates the life, works, and writings of Rizal to be taught in the curriculum of all schools. The law was passed to ensure that Rizal's truth would not be forgotten, that his condemnations of colonial excess would not be forgotten, and that his vision of or for the country would not be forgotten.
What surprised me at the time was that a number of people actually opposed this law, particularly the Catholic Church at the time, which really speaks of the struggle against historical oppression. They said that Rizal's novels were too critical against the friars. It was basically an attempt to prevent Filipinos from knowing the historical truths that Rizal exposed.
But unfortunately, it was fast because up until now, we regretfully see glaring instances of contemporary attempts to rewrite history. One of the worst is the consistent attempt to whitewash and even romanticize martial law in the Philippines.
We see accounts attempting to define martial law as a golden age of discipline and prosperity, glossing over the widespread human rights violations. political repression, economic plunder, and trampling of freedoms that characterized that dark period.
And ito pa, there are coordinated efforts din of misinformation on the internet, spreading lies, minimizing atrocities, and attempting to negate history based on records of the victims and genuine researchers. This is historical revisionism in its worst possible form, attempting to alter our collective memory for political reasons.
And that is why we need to remember history. If we do not learn from history, if we allow it to be rewritten, then we are going to repeat itself. Rizal knew that. His entire work was a testament to the power of truth and the necessity of confronting uncomfortable historical facts.
He recognized that a country without a vision of its past is like a ship without a rudder, susceptible to being swayed and steered. His dedication to historical scholarship, his willingness to defy conventional wisdom, and his insistence on telling the truth to power are lessons of profound contemporary relevance.
So, as students, when we study Rizal, let's not just see him as a historical figure. Let's see him as a crusader of truth, a man who sacrificed his life to awaken his people to their real story. Let's learn from him and critically evaluate the information we are provided with. Question the stories which have the tendency to reinterpret actual established facts and find out the truth for ourselves.
Very true, because our history, in all its complication, is our foundation. It reshapes our identity, educates our present, and directs our future. Remembering it in its unvarnished states.
Wonderfully said. It was such a nice opportunity to be able to talk about these things. We hope that this discussion of historical revisionism made you think and want to know more about the true history of our country.
Join us on our next episode where we talk about system injustice and how Rizal's life was influenced by the Friar Lads and how it is connected to the power disparities we observe in our world today, as uncovered in Nolimi Tangere and El Filibusterismo.
Don't forget to follow, like, and share Rizal Reimagine. We're here to make Rizal relatable and relevant to your life.
Until then, stand for truth, learn from history, and keep on reimagining results.